Hey people, I hope you're well. It's Makeda Valletta. I'm on my IG live right now, but I will be saving this and reposting it onto my YouTube. I don't usually do videos at night, but I had to do this before I went to sleep real quick because I was reading, being the nerd that I am. How are you? Just been, I'm always researching, and I was just reading some really disturbing things, and I'm like, I've been wanting to do a video about the kids, right? For those of you who are not familiar with me, I'm on my IG live, so I know all you guys here know who I am. But since I'm going to save this video and repost it to my YouTube, let me just say, in case you're unfamiliar with me, I'm a strength and conditioning coach, a holistic sports nutritionist, and I have a background in exercise science, sports science, nutrition science, a little bit of biotechnology. So I'm really into epigenetics, and I've just committed my life to studying all the ways that we can take our body to its highest level. And I'm just really into holistic health in general, like just on every level. Okay, so even though I'm into nutrition, I'm a nutritionist and I'm a exercise physiologist trainer, I'm still very much into interdisciplinary health sciences, right? And how everything affects us. So I've been reading this book on EMF, okay, by Dr. Joseph Mercola, who since this C-19 situation, they've been trying to call him a fraud because he's totally, against the shots and everything. But I've been following Dr. Mercola for like 20 years, okay? He's a medical doctor out of Chicago who now lives in Florida. But he wrote this book on EMFs, right? EMF, 5G, Wi-Fi, and cell phones, hidden harms and how to protect yourself. So I've known that EMFs are bad. Even when I hold my phone too much, it bothers my hand. When I talk on the phone, I always use earphones. I don't hold the phone to my head because I've known for a long time that it can cause brain cancer. It can expose, your brain to direct radiation. I don't use Bluetooth at all because Bluetooth definitely can magnify the amount of radiation that is sent to your brain, right? And there's been an increase in breast cancer because of women putting cell phones in their bra, which is crazy to me. And also, not only has there been an increase in breast cancer, but also where they're finding the tumors, which is like in the inner upper quadrant of the breast, where before it was the outer upper quadrant of the breast, right? But the thing is, when it comes to kids, I want to talk about kids because I'm somebody that I observe bodies, right? I observe the obvious. So I study a lot, but I also look at what people look like, right? And you can't always judge somebody's health by how they look. Some people look good and they're not that healthy. But generally, you can tell a lot by a look. And I've noticed that a lot of the kids now don't look right, Like when I say kids, I mean like people in their early 20s, they're not kids, they're young adults, right? People in their early 20s and a lot of teenagers don't look right to me. They don't, like when I look at young men who are 18, 17, 19, 20, 21, early 20s, early to mid 20s, they all look so little. They look like their bone structure doesn't look good. Their skin doesn't look good. A lot of the girls too, they look like they didn't go through puberty. I just remember when I was in college, guys looked more grown than that, and so did girls, When I go by college campuses, I live by a college campus in Chicago. I live by two, by Loyola and Northwestern. But also, if I'm passing Howard in D.C., Columbia, whatever college I pass, black or white, the college students look like they're 12 to me. They don't look like how people look when I was in college. I just noticed the difference. When I'm looking at a lot of these young celebrities, girls and guys, they look like they didn't go through puberty. Like, no offense, but like Coi Leray, for example. Aaliyah was a thin girl, but Aaliyah, didn't look like she was 12, though, when she was 21. Coi Leray looks like she didn't go through puberty. So it's like you can be naturally thin and still look your age. But a lot of these young people now, they just don't look right. So I've been observing that. And then if you look at the stats, there's been a lot of articles and studies talking about how this is the first generation, like this is the first time in the history since of us being on this planet where the kids now are not expected to live as long as their parents, okay? These kids now are not expected to live as long as their parents, and this is the first generation of that. So when people talk about, oh, we're living longer now, we're healthier now, no. We're in a decline, okay? People are getting less healthy. And I'm so passionate about this. It's like the more that I learn, the more disturbing it is. Because most people aren't studying what I'm studying and they're not paying attention like that, right? And they're just living life. But I can promise you that when it comes to your health, what you don't know can hurt you. And if you're just living life, eating whatever foods, using whatever air freshener, using whatever soap, taking whatever drug from the doctor, using all these machines, and then you end up getting cancer or a heart attack, it's not really a surprise, right? So I was listening to Dr. Robert Malone. I don't know if you know who he is. I'm tired, but I had to do this video. So Dr. Robert Malone, he's one of the scientists who helped invent the mRNA technology. And, he's a vaccine scientist. And he's been speaking out a lot against this jab in particular, but especially for children, right? And I listened to an interview today on Clubhouse where he was being interviewed, and there were some interesting things, which I had already been thinking, right? So he was talking about the effects on kids and how they've already been seeing that there are a large number of kids that are having speech problems now. They're having all kinds of developmental speech problems because of the mask wearing. The mask wearing is stunting their mental development, okay? Because part of, speech is seeing people's mouths move, right? And so you have a whole generation of kids who are just not seeing any mouths move, okay? And it's stunting their speech ability. It's causing mental issues, right? But also this homeschooling thing, when everything just went online, it is not good to be in front of these machines all day. Even myself, I always think to myself, I don't know how kids in college do it now, because I would be way too distracted with all these machines. Like, I have books to write and I could barely write them because every time I go online, there's so many things. There's social media, there's the emails, or I go to look at one thing and then 5 other things pop up. I go look at one YouTube video and I get all these other suggestions forever and ever. It's like overload. And it distracts me. So I cannot imagine being a college student or any other kind of student, right? And these kids now have smartphones, okay? I don't have kids, but I don't understand why a kid needs a smartphone, okay? I don't understand why a kid needs social media. I don't think that any of that's good. And you have a lot of parents now who are putting their babies on social media from the time they come out. They're giving them their whole Instagram page. I think that's a bad idea. So the thing is that, in this book, right, this EMF book is talking about how kids, and this is before C19, the amount of suicide, how the suicide rates have gone up exponentially, okay, since these kids have been in front of the machines more. Also, kids are not little adults, just like women are not little men, right? They're different systems. So the fact that so many parents, and I don't, it's just crazy to me. So many parents just throw iPads and phones into their kids' hands, into their babies' hands to get them to be quiet or do something. I'm like, whatever happened to books? Those of you who follow me know I'm pro books. I'm always talking about books. I got books. If you came to my house, I got books everywhere, okay? I got mad books. I read a lot of books. When I was growing up, I read a lot of books. That was reinforced. That's how it was in my house. It was read books. When I went to visit my aunt in the summer, who was a math teacher, she had a math workbook for my brother and I, and books that we had to read. We had to do book reports for school and for her, right? So parents don't give their kids books. They give them these machines. And the radiation the radiation affects the children so much worse than it affects adults, okay? So much worse. So I'm going to read some things. I'm just going to read some stuff out of this book. Also, you know, the EMF also affects the plants too, and in the food that we eat. It's also causing genetic damage there as well. So I'm very much aware of not carrying my phone in my pocket or close to my genitals or anything like that. But in here it's talking about how, okay, so I'm gonna read a few things out of this book about why children are so susceptible to this EMF damage, right? And the fastest growing rate of cancer is in children. Okay, and I think 1 in 3 Americans now will, at some point, has gotten cancer or will get diagnosed with cancer. The fastest growing rate is in children. There is a number of reasons for that. Okay, it's cumulative effect. But with this EMF, okay, first of all, I'm finding out that the EMF actually causes, the EMF radiation causes the disease-causing bacteria to be more potent, and it kills, it damages our good bacteria. And those of you who follow me know I'm always talking about microbiomes and probiotics and how important it is to maintain your microbiome. EMFs can affect your microbiome, okay? Just like antibiotics, they give power to the disease-causing organisms, and they kill the, they damage the good bacteria, okay? So, all right, so it says here, as dangerous as EMFs are to adults, plants, bees, microbes, and animals, they pose a dramatically greater health risk for children, primarily because of the duration of exposure. The youth of today will be exposed to EMFs for a much longer time than adults. As a result, the opportunity for them to experience greater mitochondrial damage over time is exponentially higher. Okay? Children under 12 years of age also have higher body water content than adults, which allows them to absorb considerably more radiation. Additionally, a child's bone marrow absorbs 10 times more wireless frequency radiation than in adults. Perhaps their biggest vulnerability, however, is all in their head, okay? So, children's brains are particularly at risk of damage. There are no two ways about it. EMF radiation from cell phones penetrates more deeply into kids' brains than it does into those of adults. There are several reasons for this. Number one, children's skulls are thinner than adult skulls, which means more radiation is able to penetrate this protective barrier, okay? Number two, children have smaller heads in general, meaning there is less distance for radiation to travel in order to penetrate more deeply into the brain. Number three, children's brains are still developing. Key word, still developing. That's why nutrition is so important for kids, which is why I'm so against vegan children. Okay, I don't agree with veganism at all, but I definitely don't agree with it with kids because you're growing and developing at that point. As an adult, if you want to experiment and do crazy stuff with your diet and not eat enough nutrients, that's one thing. But when you're doing it, when you're developing, things don't develop right, and you cannot go back and redevelop it. Okay, so what happens during your developmental years, okay, is critical. We know this with nutrition. And we know this with whatever you're seeing, because people will be messed up for the rest of their life from something that happened in their childhood. Then I'm just seeing this. Okay, I just saw your message. You've been emailing me. I thought I emailed you back. I will look back into that when I get off here. Okay. Number 3. Children's brains are, children's brains are still developing. They aren't fully myelinated yet. Okay, so the myelin sheaths are the fat, they're fats that surround the brain cells to help the electrical signals travel quickly, right? So children's brains are still developing and they aren't fully myelinated yet, which means they have more water and less fat than adults and are more susceptible to radiation absorption. So again, having that more, this is the reason why breast cancer can happen so quickly and easily from putting cell phones there, because there's a lot of water in the breast too. The and I'm always talking about how our brain is made of fat, right? It's high fat. But children's brains don't have as much fat as adults because it's still developing. So it's more susceptible to radiation absorption. Number 4, their ears are smaller. And since the ear acts as a buffer between the cell phone and the skull, this means when children use cell phones, the devices are closer to their skulls than when adults use them, okay? And also, there's a lot of like really disturbing stuff. The other thing was that, this is kind of crazy, that there was a study with 1,300 children, and, okay, hold on. There was one study with 1,300 children, another study with 2,900 children. And the researchers found that a mother who talked on a cell phone while pregnant, her child would go on to have a 50% higher risk of ADHD. And if the mother kept the cell phone on continuously, that increased the risk to 100% higher. Okay, risk of ADHD. There was something else. Anyway, you should just get this book. This is what it was that I wanted to read. The emotional effects of EMF on kids. Now, this is pretty crazy. It explains a lot, especially with the pandemic. We know that there's been an increase in suicide rates in children. And Robert Malone was speaking about this as well, but other doctors have spoken about that too. I've already noticed that children nowadays just seem really weak, okay? I'm sorry, like, no offense to anybody, but I'm just saying, like, even with bullies, so many kids kill themselves because somebody bullied them, and I'm like, nobody was killing themselves when we were kids because somebody bullied them. You know, like, every other week, a kid killed himself because somebody bullied them. People like, stop bullying. Like, I mean, come on. Like, people bully you as adults. I get bullied every day. You can't be that weak that you're going to kill yourself because somebody bullies you. Bullies, first of all, know who to pick on. They know who to go after. You have to fight back. Being bullied can make a really strong adult. Some of the dopest, most powerful adults were bullied as children. I think Prince said he was bullied as a child. You don't kill yourself, you get better. But I feel like things are symbolic. The fact that they give these kids all these vaccines now, they don't want them to get sick. When childhood illnesses actually... Getting childhood illnesses and overcoming them strengthens your immune system against future illnesses in the future, and also helps to prevent cancer and heart disease and a bunch of other illnesses. So trying to not have a kid get a cold, not have them get the chicken pox, not have them get anything, get them all these toxic jabs, is making them weaker, okay? And being physically weaker and emotionally weaker is linked, okay? So what this is saying about the emotional effects of EMFs on kids. Cell phones, wireless enabled tablets, laptops, and Bluetooth devices affect kids emotionally, and it starts when they are very young. Many parents have done it. Maybe you have too. Your toddler starts melting down and you hand him a phone to pacify him. This shuts down eye contact and communication between parent and child. It can also teach a child to distract himself rather than endure unpleasant situations or emotions and develop necessary coping skills. I just said that, right? Both these things can stunt development, according to sociologists and psychologists. As reported in a 2018 New York Times article, the social scientist Sherry Turkle analyzed 30 years of family interactions in her book, Alone Together: Why We Expect More from Technology and Less from Each Other. She found that children now compete with their parents' devices for attention, resulting in a generation afraid of spontaneity of a phone call or face-to-face interactions. Eye contact now seems to be optional, Dr. Turkle suggests, and sensory overload can often mean our feelings are constantly anesthetized. Okay? I don't know if I said that right, but you know what I'm trying to say. Okay. Once children are old enough to have their own phones, it becomes a bone of contention between them and their parents. A Common Sense Media survey found that 25% of American parents say that they fight with their child every day about phone usage. The same survey also reports that 29% of kids keep their phones in their bed with them. Worse yet, 36% of teens wake up and check their phones in the middle of the night. This has a strong connection to mental health, as the blue light and radio frequencies emitted from the phone, as well as the mental stimulation of responding to notifications, interrupts their sleep, reducing the length of time spent asleep, as well as the quality of that sleep. Without sleep, the body can't restore itself properly, and this shows up in many factors of health, including mental health. A 2018 Australian study of 1,100 high school students found that kids whose sleep was impaired by late night phone use were significantly more likely to experience depressed moods, lower self-esteem, and lowered coping ability. Okay, now this is where it's about to get crazy. No matter which hours of the day kids spend on their phones, the resulting reductions in their mental health from using the phone can lead to devastating results. In 2017, San Diego State University psychology professor Jean Twenge published a study in clinical psychological science, for which teens in 8th through 12th grades were surveyed and compared those results to national statistics on adolescent depressive symptoms and suicide rates. She found that teens who spent more than 3 hours a day on screens were 35% more likely to have a risk factor for suicide than those who spent 1 hour or less. Okay, so let me read that again. She found that teens who spent more than 3 hours a day on screens were 35% more likely to have a risk factor for suicide than those who spent 1 hour or less. When teens spent 5 or more hours a day on their phones, that risk increased by 71%. Okay? And suicide among young people is rising precipitously. According to the CDC, the suicide rate among males 15 to 24 rose nearly 20% between 2000 and 2016. For females, it's worse. In that same time period, suicide among girls aged 10 to 14 skyrocketed 183%. And for 15 to 24-year-olds, the increase was 80%. So I'm not going to read anymore, but this book you should get, okay? EMF'd by Dr. Joseph Mercola. Don't ask me where you can get it. People say, asking me, where can I find the book? If you don't go on Amazon and look, every single book that I have, or that anybody can be found on Amazon. People don't even try to look, they just ask you that. But I'm just saying, this is an important book, okay? I feel like I want to get all the books before they get censored. There's something, this radiation and stuff from all these machines, it's a problem. I don't have a TV in my room for that reason. Like I said, I definitely don't hold cell phones to my head. Even when I'm holding in my hand too much, it bothers me. And that's why even like social media drains the hell out of me, and that's why I don't have to there's a lot of people who don't ever respond to their followers at all, okay? I don't respond to everybody, but I respond to many messages. But that's why I like to, have a purpose. Don't just hit me in my inbox to say hi, you don't got nothing to say. Because it's draining, I'm not trying to spend any extra time. I spend enough time looking at the screen that I don't have the energy to give to looking at the screen and paying attention to everything everybody's saying and what they want. You know what I'm saying? My patience is becoming very short. And there are days when I don't want to be on social media at all. I wish I could delete it all. But of course, I need it because what I do, social media is a part of that, So it has its good and its bad. But I feel like with the kids being on social media, being on these phones all day, and these because none of us grown people grew up with at least, if you're 30 and older, we didn't grow up with, iPads and, cell phones and everything in our hands all day. So the radiation that's coming through these things is damaging for adults, but it's exponentially worse for children. So to think about what I just read about the suicide, and this is like before this, pandemic happened. the suicide rates of kids and young adults is already through the roof because of these machines. So imagine what has happened now that you isolate children. Some of them are in bad homes. Let's not act like a lot of kids aren't in some horrible homes. As an adult, it seemed like the people who came from a good home are the minority. You know, so many people so if you're not going to school and now you have these kids in these screwed up homes or they're on the machines all day and they're being fed bad food and, you know, it's no wonder why, like I told you in the beginning of this video, that I have been observing for a while that young people now do not look healthy. They don't look strong. They don't look healthy. They don't look like fully developed. They don't look like they really went through puberty. They look like they've been drinking soybean oil their whole life. And even their skin. When I see a lot of young people, their skin doesn't even look good. You know, like they'll be like, it's just like, and I'm not just talking about pimples. I mean, like, I've seen people who are young, like they're like 22 and their skin looks like an old person's skin. Or like the men and women look like they didn't go through puberty. All these dudes is mad little. The chicks is mad little. Like, and that's why all these chicks getting all this surgery, because it's like, I mean, some of them really don't need the surgery, and I'm not an advocate of it at all, but I just feel like a lot of them didn't go through puberty. So then they're like, oh, I didn't go through puberty, let me just add it on at 20. Like, it's crazy. And that has a lot to do with the food. If you follow my work here, then, you know, there's a lot to say about that. But it's the sum total cumulative of it all. Okay? When I found out they were giving kids chickenpox jabs, I'm like, that's crazy as hell. Because if you actually, you know, look at, people talk about the science, you know, I mean, anybody who understands immunology knows that getting that actually strengthens your immune system. Getting chickenpox as a kid does strengthen your immune system against many things in the future. And now they're not allowing children's immune system to develop. They're poisoning them with all this stuff. They're not giving the right foods. If you're of a certain age, you were given cod liver oil as a kid. That was something everybody got. Super important. And so just knowing all this stuff, it's like, no, it's not a surprise that the fastest growing rate of cancer is in children. It's not a surprise. And it's sad. Like, I've known people who've had kids with cancer, who died of cancer. We just saw that Nick Cannon's son, you know, had a brain tumor. Like, that doesn't come out of nowhere, you know. But a lot of people are just kind of living life doing whatever. And some people end up not getting cancer or getting sick, or maybe it happens later. But some people do. And the reason why you're seeing all these problems in people, it doesn't come out of nowhere. You know? And so I'm just going to say, these children, you know, they're just, I mean, it's sad. It's really sad. And there's a small group of, you know, parents who are aware of some of these things, but a lot are not, you know. It's like, from birth, you got kids who might have been born in the hospital, may have been born by C-section, may not have been breastfed. You know, that's already starting off wrong. Not given the right foods in the womb, you know, there's a lot with that, you know. Then being exposed to all this radiation, there's a lot of mothers that have baby monitors and stuff, which are exposing tons of EMF radiation. Then you're putting the machines in their hands, and you're giving them, you know, all this chemical-laced food with no nutrients or fake nutrients. I mean, it's no wonder why a lot of these kids, teenagers, and young adults don't look like they should for their age. They look underdeveloped, and that they're so sickly. Okay, it's not a surprise. So I just need to do this video real quick. Definitely check out the book. And the other books that I post on my Instagram page. I post some good ones, okay? And if you're on my YouTube channel, be sure to follow me on Instagram. And if you're on my Instagram, be sure to follow me on YouTube. It's late. I'm going to go to sleep. I just had to do this and talk about this real quick. Something was on my mind for a while, but then when I started reading this just now about the kids and the suicide, I'm like, whoa, okay, well, protect your kids. And if you learned something from this, please like it, please share it, and have a good night. Bye, people.